Hi guys, this is Mike. In this Cinema 4D tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make holes within a torus or a cylinder without causing any deformation. In order to make a hole within a cylinder or a torus, we're going to have to learn a technique in order to make the result look correct. So in order to do that, I'm going to demonstrate by going to KL on the keyboard to bring up our knife tool, our loop cut. I'm going to put a cut here and here. And let me zoom in. I'm going to go to polygon mode. And I'm going to select these polygons here. I'm going to extrude inwards by command clicking on the Z axis. And you can see the result that we have here with this hole within our cylinder. So I'm going to go to subdivision surface, drag this underneath, and I'm going to go back to model mode, and I'm going to turn off our lines just so we can see this result. And you can see how this smooths over our edges. So let's go back to our line mode, and I'm going to have to put in some sharpening cuts in order to sharpen up these edges when we have subdivision surface on. So I'm going to go back to KL, and I'm going to have to put one on either side of our opening. So let me zoom in so you can see. So if I put a cut here, 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 and here, let's put one on this side as well, over here, and let's put one on either side of our bottom. Now we're also going to have to put one here and here. Let's turn on our subdivision surface, and you can see our opening that we have. Let me pull back out a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to go to model mode, and we turn off our lines, and I'm going to select off of our object. Look at the deformation that we have on our object. Now we have our subdivision surface on. Even if we turn it up in our editor, we go to 3, we can see these deformation lines, and it looks very ugly. The reason why is if we go to turn off our subdivision surface, and I'm going to go back to our edges, we need to have the exact number of lines that are spaced perfectly correct in our horizontal mode, or horizontal lines. Now it's okay if we have these vertical lines in, depending on our orientation of our cylinder, but it's these lines that go across depending on how we set up our lines when we first set up our parametric object, and how these lines go across our object. So if we have lines that aren't perfectly exact separation between each other, we're going to have those deformations. There's no way to get around that. So in order to learn this, we have to learn a technique that will allow us to add in holes within a cylinder. And this also works well in a torus as well. So I have a plane here to demonstrate a technique in order to make a hole within our cylinder. I'm going to try using this plane and show you an example of this. So if I want to make, say, a detail on this plane, so what I would do is I would select the polygons that I want to extrude or inner extrude, and then I would select the polygons looped around it. I would go to inner extrude, pull inward to get to the width that I would like. And then what I can do is I can put in a loop around this object. So if I go to KL, and you can see we have this loop here. Let's get pretty close to the same width or thickness as our other line here. So let's go to our polygon mode. And we have these polygons selected. I can command click and drag upwards or inwards, depending on what we want to do. So we're going to make a hole. So let's go inwards, Command click again, and then Command click again. So now when I go to subdivision surface, and I drag our plane underneath the subdivision surface, you can see we have this nice cut and this nice edge that goes around our object. And this can demonstrate better if I go to model mode. And I'm going to turn off lines for a moment. You can see how this looks. We have this nice edge that goes around our object. Now this same technique works just as well within a cylinder or say a torus. So I'm going to use the same technique on this cylinder. So I'm going to go to my KL, go to my loop cut tool. I'm going to make a cut, and I'm going to make a cut here. Let's zoom in. Go to polygon mode, my live selection tool, and I'm going to select these polygons here. Now I know that I'm going to have to use the same technique of having to have a loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to KL again, make another cut here and another cut here. And so I'm going to select these polygons that are right on the outside of our detail that we want to cut in. So I'm going to go to inner extrude or extrude inner, and I'm going to pull in just as we did before. Now we might be a little bit off here and we can make some adjustments as we go, but the technique is still the same. And so now I want to put in another cut just like we did on the plane. I'm going to put a loop cut here, and now with our object still selected in polygon mode, I'm going to command click and drag, pull in, and get pretty close to what we had with our loop cut, and pull that back in again as well. And we can go one more time if we're going to be having this inset here. So I'll go to my subdivision surface, drag in my cylinder, and let's go to our model mode, take off our lines. You can see that we have, if I pull out a little bit, you can see that we have now this inset, we have this hole, and we can delete this part here in the back if you need to. But the idea is still the same. We have an object that has an inset, a detail, and you can see within our viewport that we don't have any deformations that we had before. Now keep in mind, this does not only work with just an inset or a hole. You can also extrude the same technique that I used. You can extrude out and make some more details that way, and it won't affect the cylinder around it. So let me go to my lines, and I'll turn off the subdivision surface. And you can understand how this works. You have this angle here that comes in and down. Now we're still within quads. We haven't made any triangles. So we stay within quads, and we have this edge, and you can see if I go to polygon mode and I'll go to my UL and my loop, you can see how this loop is a continuously around our hole. And you can do that all the way here too. So anything within this line, this loop that we have here, we can do whatever we want. Just as long as we don't put any cuts that go vertically, just as I showed you with the cylinder. So it won't make any deformations within our cylinder, but we can still put in some details within this hole that we made. In this final example, I'm going to use a torus. So you can see here I have the torus and I have a disc, and this will help me make a circular opening for our our little hole. Now, we'll just use this as a reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide our disk. And with our torus selected, select these quads here. Now, you'll notice with this torus, I made sure that these segments are about as square as I possibly can. Now I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to go to extrude inner, extrude inwards, command click and drag within this axis. And I'm going to do that one more time, and as well as extrude inner for this inner part, just so we have an edge cut for when we do a subdivision surface. Okay, great. So now let's go to our disk, and we can increase the size a little bit. Oops, excuse me. Let's make sure I'm on the disk, and I'll increase the outer radius a little bit. And this might help you when you make some adjustments. So let's go back to our torus, point mode, live selection, and let's rotate around so we can grab these points here, shift, and let's grab these points as well. T, and what I'm going to do is in this axis, I'm going to pull this up a little bit, say about here. And I'm going to grab the points over here on the side and over here, T, and on this axis, bring this out a little bit more. So let's go to our subdivision surface, grab our torus, put that underneath our subdivision surface, and let's give it a render, see how we look. Okay, we're looking pretty good. I just want to make some fine-tune adjustments. You can also see some faceting here. That's really just because I'm rendering within the editor. We can bring this up a little bit in the editor and make a render. You can see we can get rid of that faceting a little bit. So let's turn off our subdivision surface, go back to our torus, and let's make some finer adjustments here. Go to our live selection, select these points, and let's grab these here at the bottom. You could also use a set selection if you need to go back to these selections. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Now you're going to notice something as you do this and you curve, you move over to the side, you can see this curve kind of gets a little deformed. So what we can then do is go to our directional tool and then just pull this back a little bit and just kind of eyeball this so we have a more natural curve. And if I do a render, you can see that I'm a little bit over onto the side of the shadow. It's a little bit better. Let's make sure our subdivision surface is on. And you can see that deformation. You don't see that deformation now that I move those points back. So we're looking pretty good. We can do a little bit more adjustments to make this, make sure that our points are a little bit better in terms of our circular shape. Because right now it's still a little bit square, so it's really just kind of going back and forth a little bit and making some finer adjustments. So let's go to our live selection, grab these points here and here, and then make this a little bit more of a circular shape. Go to our subdivision surface, do a render, and you can see now we have this nice smooth opening for, say, for an example, a screw hole. And this is just an example for a torus. Of course, you can do the same effect as I demonstrated with a cylinder as well. So now we don't have to worry about making edge cuts that would deform our sphere, or excuse me, our torus or our cylinder. I put a link in the description to download project files. You can also go to astronomic3d.com to download project files from this tutorial and all the tutorials that I've made so far. Thanks for watching.